Welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. Now, you fishermen out there, we know, follow us where we do surf and beach fishing. We've got a huge following here at the Totally Awesome Fishing Show, and we're looking for information all the time. Now, I've had a phone call from Tony Kirrage down at Tony's Tackle in Eastbourne. He's the man of the moment, definitely has been for about 40 years. I say man of the moment. He's been about 40 years in the trade, and he knows everything there is. Now, they're great innovators down in Eastbourne for terminal rigs, techniques and everything. They're sort of the forerunners and the pioneers of a lot of the modern surf fishing. Now, he's told me to come down and look at a beach rod, so I've driven all the way from Hampshire. So there's better be some good beach rod, and he's going to tell us about it. He reckons it's going to revolutionise fishing for beginners and intermediates alike. You'll all be able to cast a fair old way with this rod. And Tony, tell us all about it.
Hi Graeme, nice to see you. I've called you down today because I've got these new rods from Sonik. They're not out for about 3 or 4 weeks, but I think they're going to revolutionise fishing a bit. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic. I've got two models. There's a 15-foot 4 and there's a 14-foot 4. They're very, very light. I don't know if you can see them in the camera here. This is 3-piece. They're basically made for fixed ball fishing. You can actually use a multiplier on them, no problem. I've had a couple of chucks and I've used a multiplier and they're very, very good. They've got an ultra fine tip which is spliced in. If I put that down there, I don't know if you can see this. The tip from here is spliced in, and that's a glass tip for bite detection. It's ever so sensitive, fantastic. And it's also white so you can see it in the night, which is good. When you're fishing at night, it's hard to see the tip of the rod sometimes. With the fineness of this tip, it's hard to see at any time, but they are so receptive to any bite and anything that's happening. Beautifully finished in lovely coloured whipping. You've got Fuji rings on here, which are which they call K rings, which stand off the rod. So when you cast a fixed ball, you don't have to have these monstrous rings like we used to have in the past. The rings are quite adaptable. They're very easy, very, very fine. Sometimes a little bit too fine, because I'd kind of like myself to have one with slightly bigger rings so that my clip comes through easy enough. But it's okay as long as you've not got a lot of weed, you know.
It's all right for leader knots going through.
It's perfect for the leader knot, but what it is, if you get a load of weed, sometimes it can be a bit of a nuisance. But at the time, you can either make these slightly bigger if you want yourself, adapt them, or if not, bring out your big rod when the going gets tough, you know what I mean? But what's happening with these, Graeme, is that people are actually casting probably 30 yards further than they've ever cast in their life. I mean, I think the big winner will be the 15-foot 4. They're both very nice. Different areas, 14-foot 4 will be good. I think the length enables you to cast a long way with ease, and that's what we want.
Now, what do they throw lead-wise? There are two different types, Tony. What are they going to throw?
I've got 4 to 8, which this is. I think the other one's 4 to 8 as well. It's just a slightly shorter rod. You know, sometimes if you're fishing overhead casting and you're fishing where there's, you know, up against cliffs or whatever, you can't really use 15-foot 4. It can be a nuisance. But what I've found with these is they're just so easy to cast. They're so light, and you know, I'm getting really frustrated with this, because what I've found is guys I fish next to in matches, they're literally casting miles, and I'm trying my heart out to keep on a multiplier. And I'm just about there at the moment, but it's getting tougher and tougher. So I use one of each now when I go. I have one fixed ball, one multiplier, so I do both. Okay, what you've got here, Graeme, is a nice long spigot, which is nice. Many rods years ago, they had short spigots. They didn't go in far enough and caused problems. With this, long spigot, plenty of strength there. You've got a thing here that tells you how to line up the rings, which is nice. And you've got a small reinforcement here, which is like a metal collar, which keeps it all nice and neat, and also that reinforces that spigot as well, and it's got a little bit of whipping there just to finish it off. It's beautiful. Yeah, what you've got on here as well is K-rings, which are the in thing. It saves you using these great big heavy rings and big ones that, like for fixed ball. The way they're set, they work for fixed ball fishing, and they're nice and small, which is good. They're Fuji's, of course. It'll cast 4 to 8, as we said. It's 3-piece. It's 15-foot 4. They also do a 14-foot, which I've got over there, which is 14-foot 4. It's got all the same livery on it and everything. It's brilliant, but it's just basically slightly shorter. Lovely carbon fitting on these as well. They've got these Fuji carbon fittings. They are fixed, you know, but they're fixed in the right place, which is important. If they're fixed in the wrong place, it's not very good. But I've also used my multiplier on this quite often, on these kind of rods, and they're fine. You know, a lot of people think they're just totally for fixed spool, but they will actually work for a multiplier. That's a beautiful carbon fitting on there, and you can see that the Sonik livery is great. I mean, they've put a lot of effort into that, and you can see the way it sort of really well done, which is quite important, because when you're buying a rod, you want it to look quite smart, really, don't you? Believe it or not, Graeme, this carbon butt on here, which is parallel, it doesn't look it, it's very fine, but this will cast a long way, and you can put leads up to 8 ounces on here, which sounds incredible, you know. I mean, we don't use 8 ounces, you go home, don't you? But basically, you can put a 6 ounce on here and you can whack it, 5 1/4, deals with it, you know, which you wouldn't think, because they're so fine and so finesse. But Sonik have got it pretty good here. They've got nice livery on here, finishing it off. It's a very light butt, but it's also very stiff. So that means that it basically will cast a long way with minimum effort, which we're saying. And as I said to you earlier, I'm getting really wound up, because a lot of these guys are buying these rods now, and they're turning up in the matches and winning a lot of money. And it's no longer easy to win matches. I'm afraid there's so many people now who are fairly good at casting who used to be average, because the rods are just going into a different era. They're fantastic.
So what you were saying, Tony, because I know you do a lot of match fishing, is this is on the match scene a great equaliser.
Without doubt,
So you know, I mean, look, years ago, anybody, I mean, I wouldn't have the sense to bloody fish against you guys down here because you're too good. Now, if I've got a decent rig, like some of those terminal rigs you sell with the small hooks, and a rod like that, and a fine tip, surely I've got, you know, a reasonable chance of actually coming in and actually having a chance against you guys.
There's so many, Graeme, instant match anglers out there now, you can't believe it. They come and buy a really, alright, it's an expensive rod, but you get what you pay for, don't you? They come and buy an expensive rod, they buy a fixed spool reel to go with it, and all of a sudden, bit of braid on the end, bit of light nylon, and bang, you know, they're out there with the big boys. And some guys have started up and become, over about a period of a year, absolutely brilliant. You just learnt the basics so quickly. And of course, I've spent, you know, my apprenticeship doing that, and now you find guys are beating you left, right, and centre. You think, what can I do now? What's my next angle? I haven't got any. I'm running out of time, Graeme. I'm getting a bit old. I'm nearly 60 now, but I'm trying. I'm still getting results anyway, now and again.
I mean, the main thing I find is with beginners and people, novices coming into it, and indeed some older guys that have perhaps left the sport and they've emailed us, and we know they're getting back into beach fishing. We've got a massive following, but what they need to catch fish, even if they're small fish, they've got to be productive, so they seem to be out on the beach catching something.
Yeah, I mean,
so what you're saying is this rod should... it's obviously going to catch a big fish because there's plenty of power there, I realise that. But this, with a fine tip, you know, should really put you in with a chance of catching at least something.
Yeah, guys are 70. Unbelievable. I mean, it's hope for me yet.
Yeah.
It's hope for you as well.
That's me, yeah.
Guys are 70, coming back into fishing, and then I'm watching them thinking, unbelievable. I mean, it's just to watch it is really good, because they've nearly given up match fishing. You know, I can't pendulum cast anymore. I can't keep up with certain people, the Alan Yates of this world and the people like that. Now all of a sudden they can.
Yes.
And they're going down there and they're just casting miles with no effort at all. That's the big thing. No effort, you know.
Yeah.
I can have you over that field now.
Pardon?
Get you a long way. I can get you cast a long way.
There's hope
in
for
about
me.
half an hour, and you'll be like amazed how far you'll cast. If you get your conventional rods, and I'll get you one of these, and you put it in your hand, and you get the right gear on it, you can cast miles. I fished last night, Graeme. It's pretty rough, so we didn't call you down. But it was one of them nights where it was half and half. Wasn't sure it was going to be too rough or whatever. So we're going to have a little wang with this rod later on today. But there was some good fish caught last night. I think there was over six cod weighed in.
Yeah.
They're not cod, you know, they're codling really. They're about £2, £2.5.
Yeah, yeah. But
it's all good fishing and it's nice. There's stacks of whiting caught, as there usually is. But what was interesting, there was about 6 dogfish weighed in. And I don't know where they've come from, these dogfish, but we don't catch them on the shore normally. But what's happened in the last year, I think that where they're out there in the deeper water, the ground's getting smashed up and different things, and there's not so much food out there, so I think they're hungry. So, you know, you never used to ever catch a dogfish on lugworm. As everyone knows, it's mackerel, sand eels, stuff like that. We're catching them on lugworm, left, right and centre. There was 5 or 6 caught last night. I caught 2. And they're nice size.
Yeah,
and
well,
they're catching them on lugworm, which is crazy.
Well, that's interesting you should say that, because
So they're
Mike...
finding the lug beds, you know?
Yeah, well, Mike was up in Suffolk a couple of days ago with his girlfriend fishing, and he noticed he was catching small whiting there, how thin they were. Now, I did a film last week at Hayden Island, and I know some of the whiting are a narrow fish. None of them at all seem to have much in their stomach. So that fits in with what you're saying about a lack of food out there.
There's a big food shortage out there where the boat's, you know, in a couple of mile off, and these fish are hungry and they're coming in, and you're getting all kinds of things caught on the beach. The beach fishing's thriving, to be honest with you, because I think the fish are hungry. There's lugworm beds out here off Eastbourne and off Dungeness, places like that, and I think they're coming in because they're really hungry.
They want the food. They want the food. So there's a chance if we get down the beach,
I think today,
a couple of hours,
even coloured,
even in daylight, we should be okay with the coloured water.
Sea's coloured. I don't know if we get a cod because they tend to feed more at night, but we should get a lot of whiting and we might get a few fish. I don't know if we get a dogfish, but it's good to have two last night. A 3-hour comp, and it was. I think the top weight was about. Well, it would have been about £15, but it was 6 because we only bring 5 whiting back. We try and preserve them, so we bring the 5 biggest ones back and we put the rest back.
That's
it's
good.
like a species hunt.
Yeah.
It's no good slaughtering them. It's quite sad, really. You know what I mean? There's too much of that going on.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's get these.
If we get down there, I mean, I can't wait to try these out. I've got similar rods, as you know, but I just want to try these out because they're new.
And you'll guarantee I'm going to cast further than I've ever cast before. That's the main thing.
Without a doubt, Graeme.
Yeah. The conditions for fishing from a beach were, let's face it, people, less than favourable. It had been blowing southwesterly, probably 5 to 7 for about, 2 days at least, and churned the sea into a sort of brown foaming mass. Now, that made it difficult for casting with any rod, even this new long distance rod. But we still got out a good enough distance to try and catch a few fish, and that's what matters when you're fishing. You need to get a big let out to hold in that current, in that wind, in that wave action, but you've also got to punch out there and get as far as you can just to hold a decent sized let out there. So we're still going to give it a go. That's fishing. But look at the difference in the two tips between the standard beach rod, and there you can see that new beach rod is very, very fine in the tip. And coupled with braid line on the fixed spool reel, that non-stretch quality of braid. I'm not a lover of braid, I'm not going to say I am, but it does give you instant bite detection, braid, non-stretch qualities, and that tip. And all we were doing, nothing fancy, just a straight overhead thump cast, and that sent the lead out far enough behind the waves to at least allow that grip lead and the 3 baits on the rig to sit and maybe find a fish. It didn't take Tony long to get into the first fish with that new rod, and he's adamant that a fixed spool reel with a fast retrieve and the extra long tip of the rod there, the extra length to help lift that fish off the seabed, stops you getting it snagged, getting it caught, and it allows you to catch fish in. And there we go, the wind's so strong it's actually blowing it away from his hands. It doesn't look it in the background. Trust me, it must have been blowing 25 knots there, and he's still got a triple shot of fish. Wait for this, on his first cast. Well, there you go, guys, another triple shot like Tony had. So down here off Eastbourne, it's obviously alive with whiting. Nice bit of fishing, a crap bit of weather, and it's now starting to rain. You can just watch the tip of this rod barely bend. It barely bends, just a glass tip, and then it powers down into the lock and load section of the carbon of the blank, and it was just sort of straight overhead thumps we were giving this rod, as hard as I could do it, and it certainly sent a 5-ounce grip lead out exactly where I wanted it, even against the wind. Anyway, conditions were getting towards dusk, and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to move areas, and I had to get down behind the groin to try and get a bit of shelter from that wind. It paid off straight away, almost into another fish. Well boys, it's wild and woolly up here, Eastbourne, Langley Point. Yet another whiting on this new rod. There's plenty of fish out there. I do like that tip action on it, I have to say. And it casts well. There we go, whiting coming out. Aplenty. Don't come down Eastbourne today because you'll never be able to park your car. There is that many whiting. I should think they'd be swimming around up on the parade. Well, quite happy with that rod. It's absolutely horrendous conditions. I'm hiding behind this groin. But for a testing on a beach rod, when you're actually getting some good casting in and you're actually getting a few fish, you can't ask any more than that, can you? Get this little chappy back and hope a codling comes along. As dusk was falling upon me, I thought, shall I stay, shall I pack up? Because the conditions were truly horrendous. But as you can see, the town lights in the distance around Pevensey Bay area were being switched on. This is the time that you want to stay fishing. It's not the time to be packing up. You want to be there at dusk, and wackadoo, out goes that rod. Well, the rod doesn't go out, Graeme, talk sense. Out goes that lead with that long rod. And bear in mind, I had the shorter version of the two rods that I was testing out there, and they barely flexed, and I was giving it a really good heave-ho, and it still went out. I don't know who you have to be to bend these rods properly, but I got the lead out as far as I could get with any fishing rod. The fish are still coming thick and fast. There we have another prime whiting, and here we have a prime species from Eastbourne Beach. Anybody know what this one is? A rarity. It's not a red mullet. It's what's known as a bogfish. Yes, it's covered in a piece of used toilet paper. Yuck! Got to unhook that now, haven't I? Oh dear, after this fishing session, I would think I will be well and truly, given the weather, browned off.